And you have other ways of carrying it. Because you're marching many miles a day, these weapons are 10 pounds, so they get a little heavy. So another way of carrying would be to support arms. So now you would have the lock resting in the crease of the elbow. It's quite comfortable, and it takes some of the weight off the hand. And some men on guard duty would carry it in this fashion. And if you're running onto the battlefield, a lot of men would grab the small of the stock as they ran on the field to give it a little more support. Shoulder arms. Now, the firearm would always be loaded because you never know when the enemy is going to appear. So you would have powder and ball down that barrel and powder in the priming pan as well. If it begins to rain, you do not want water running down the barrel because if the powder gets wet, it's going to turn into an oil and it's not going to work. So to prevent that, we'll go to secure arms. So they just swing it down. So now that the barrel is pointing down, so they're not going to get water in there. And when you now have the lock up under the arm protected as well. Shoulder arms. Now that long, short, pointy thing on the end is called the bayonet. It comes to hand, we'll tell them to arms, put, charge, bayonets. Now on the battlefield, this would be quite intimidating when you have a line of men, at least 45 would make a rank marching against you with these long, sharp bayonets. And what they're really designed for is to fend off a cavalry charge. Horses do not like long, sharp objects. And when they see those things, they're going to stop it. But if you're being attacked by the enemy line trying to load this weapon, you don't have time to load it, you have the bayonet on, and you would lunge forward at the enemy with it. Shoulder arms. Unfixed bayonets. Now we're going to go over that 12-step loading procedure, folks. Again, this is what they would drill on over and over. So I'm going to tell the men to load in 12 times. Load. Open pen, handle cartridge. Now the cartridge they have is a paper tube. It has round ball and powder all contained within it. It's there. And these are crimped over. And the only way we can open this is to tear a cartridge. They would bite off the end of it, spit it out, and prime. They would pour powder into the priming pan, shut pan, and cast about. Charge cartridge. They would pour that remaining gunpowder down that barrel. And with the ball in the paper, they wad that up and stuff it into the muzzle. Now we need to drive it down to the breech and pack it on top of the powder within the barrel. So we tell them to draw rammer and ram cartridge. They would sling that rammer in there, pack it tight, return rammer. Now this is an essential step of loading, folks, because we need that ramrod to load the firearm. And what happens sometimes on the battlefield, you have to remember you're being shot at. So these men are in a hurry to load, and then in the rush of loading, sometimes they could forget to pull the rammer out of the barrel, bring the weapon up, fire it, there goes your ramrod. Now you're in trouble. So you have to ensure it goes back in place, and if you notice when they push the rammer in, they're not pushing it in with their full hand. They use the pinky finger as you drove it in, because your hand would be over a loaded barrel. If the thing went off, it's going to blow your hand off. So use the pinky finger, so if it goes off, you still have the hand and 4 other fingers. Okay, we can live without the pinky but not the hand. And some men found out the hard way, they'll never do it again. So you push the rammer in, we then tell them to shoulder arms. They then bring the weapon up to the left shoulder. If you're line infantry, the weapon goes on the left shoulder. That tells the officer that the men are loaded and ready to go in the quickest time, 15 to 20 seconds. Okay? Now the officer would be looking down the line, waiting to see his men, all of his men at that left shoulder. So when he sees that, he'll tell them to make ready, take aim, and fire. Boom. Shoulder, arms. We go back to the shoulder and we do the whole process over. Okay? Now the man on the end of the line over here, that is our drummer. He's our musician. He has an important job. Now he keeps cadence with the drum when we're marching. We have to look like a professional army on the field. But his primary job is to relay the commands on the field. It is very, very loud. You have muskets, artillery, rifles going off. The men at the end of the line cannot hear the commands, but they can hear that drum. So he is relaying the commands to the men in the line. So the first round we're going to fire will be by the 12-step loading procedure. The last 2 rounds that we will shoot off will be by the quickest time with the drum. Okay, so it will be a little loud, folks. Hopefully they won't go off. We'll see. But if you have sensitive hearing, you may want to cover the ears.
Squat. Load in 12 times. Load. Open hand. Handle cartridge.
其实我们在看它是在重复，
Air cartridge.
不用，就是重复刚才那件事。
Prime. Shut pan. Cast about. Charge cartridge. Draw rammer. Ram cartridge. Return rammer. Shoulder, arms. Prepare to fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Arms. Freeze and arms. Shoulder.